Good morning, friends. I am sure that this question would have plagued your mind at one point of time or the other. Which sunscreen should I be using? What is the sun protection factor that I should choose when I am buying the sunscreen? What is the PA rating which is mentioned on the sunscreen? I welcome you all to the masterclass on sunscreens by Dr. Shekhar Ganju. And today we'll be discussing about which sunscreen should we pick according to our skin type, which SPF should we choose, what should be the PA rating of the sunscreen, and so on. Another question that bothers you, I'm sure, is whether you should be using the sunscreens for your children or not, when they go out to play, when they go out for swimming, and all. So we'll be taking all these questions step by step. Before we delve into the deeper aspects of the sunscreen use, it is important to understand the spectrum of sunlight. The spectrum of sunlight includes the ultraviolet light, the visible light, and the infrared light. We primarily deal with the ultraviolet spectrum and the visible spectrum when we talk about the sunscreen use. The ultraviolet spectrum is further divided into ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B, and ultraviolet C. The sun protection factor that you keep on reading about, keep on looking for in a sunscreen is basically for the ultraviolet B protection. An SPF of 30 just means that it will take you about 30 times as long to burn your skin if you're not using a sunscreen versus if you're using a sunscreen. The PA factor is the protection factor for the ultraviolet A. A PA factor of 1+ means it is mildly protective, and a PA factor of 3+ means it is super protective against UVA. The sunscreens that combine both UVA and UVB protection are known as broad spectrum sunscreens, and in fact that is what we look for in a sunscreen when buying it. A question that should come right now in your mind is whether I should be buying an SPF 15, SPF 30, SPF 45, or should I go for the highest SPF available in the market? Whatever be the cost, should it help me? So the answer to that question is, for most Indians, an SPF of 30 is pretty fine, and you need not spend double or triple the amount of money on a sunscreen just to get that extra SPF of 15 percentage points or maybe 50 percentage points. The next part of discussion revolves around the type of sunscreen ingredient. So sunscreens could either be a physical sunscreen or they could either be a chemical sunscreen. Now the physical sunscreens, you can imagine them to be something like a wall that blocks the passage of light into the house, or the curtain that you pull down to block the passage of light into the house. The physical sunscreens typically leave a white cast on the face and are not acceptable to many patients when they apply it. The advantage of using a physical sunscreen is it starts acting the moment you apply it, and it directs the sunlight away from the face. It reflects the sunlight away from the face. The advantage of using a physical sunscreen is that it is mostly non-irritative. Hence, it can be used in people who have a sensitive skin phenotype or a disease known as rosacea. The physical sunscreens typically contain two molecules. It could either be a zinc oxide base or it either could be a titanium dioxide base. The zinc oxide is basically an antibacterial and anti-inflammatory molecule and also regulates the oil production from the sebaceous glands. Hence, it can be used in people with acne. It could also be used in people with sensitive skin. Whereas on the other hand, the chemical sunscreens are the female favorites, and they have a very smooth texture to them and they get absorbed into the skin the moment you apply them. The downside are two. One is they take about 30 minutes before they can start acting. The typical way a chemical sunscreen works is by converting the light energy of the sun light into heat, and then this heat is dissipated away from the skin. The chemical sunscreens contain certain chemicals which may irritate people with sensitive skin and lead to allergic or irritant contact dermatitis. Another downside that many people experience with chemical sunscreens is that they complain that it typically smells of gasoline. So if people have a sensitive nose like I have, so they will probably keep on smelling this sunscreen throughout the day. Another question that frequently I get asked by patients is that should I be using a sunscreen for my child who goes out to play, who goes out for swimming, who goes out to do outdoor activities? So the clear-cut answer to that question is no. A child does not ideally require a sunscreen unless he is suffering from a photosensitive dermatosis, something like a SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus, or a PMLE, polymorphous light eruption, or maybe xeroderma pigmentosa. So these are few indications in which we use sunscreens in children. But overall, the answer to the broad question that should I be using a sunscreen for my child is no, you should not be using it. Many times in our OPDs we get patients asking us that we have an oily skin type, we have an acne prone skin type, we have a drier skin type, we have a sensitive skin type. So I would like you to put comments below in this particular video in case you want to know specific brands that you should be using. So I have identified certain brands that work well in oily skin, in acne prone skin, in dry skin phenotype, in sensitive skin. So I can give you the specific brands that you should be using. So just pen down your comments below in case you want to know that. I am sure this session today would have given you a slight enlightenment about what a sunscreen is, what the spectrum of light is, what sunscreen you should be using in your particular skin type. We'll take this discussion ahead next time and make it more interesting in terms of your skin type preferences. Till then, I hope you're keeping yourself healthy. See you next time. God bless you all. Thank you.